women's ministry up until this point has been very predictable, and it has been very 1980s, very Baptist.
Yeah, very mauve and dusty blue.
Yes, very doilies.
Think of.
Yes. But this is the time where we start shaking things up a bit, and you kind of start shaking dust off of things and saying, do we really need this in women's ministry? Could we do something new?
Faith can feel like hearts and butterflies until someone lights a match and burns it all to the ground. Welcome to the Burning Butterflies podcast.
The sad thing is that there's abuse of every kind within the church. But the spiritual abuse is the stuff that just
It's a place there shouldn't be abuse. Like, there just shouldn't be abuse in a place that claims to.
Well, it ruins your soul. If you're new here, we suggest listening to our prologue episode first. This is the story of two women's journey through toxic church culture and spiritual abuse, all while finding healing in the end.
Sometimes it's just the facts, and if you get offended by it, that's a you issue. And if we can't be mature enough to have these conversations, even if some of the topics are difficult, then shame on us.
Yeah, I kind of took a hiatus from the church in the last few years. I got that really cool job, which apparently that's a problem for me, to be the breadwinner and have a career and, work 50 hours a week and just be like this successful restaurant manager. So, that's a problem. So
yeah, how dare you?
How dare I do that? And
how dare you thrive and not depend 100% on Froggy?
Sold to the church.
Yeah, you sold your soul to another corporation, not
to another
Jesus.
Corporation. Yeah. And so Brandy and I, like the two of us together, we team up, and between the two of us, I don't know, like it's a really good prescription drug cocktail, right?
Well,
you've got two totally different versions of ADHD.
That's what I was going to say. It's the best ADHD mashup because you have two very different.
I just think about mixing two like a drug cocktail, and you're just like, it's good.
Yes.
Like a good. I don't know why that's what popped in my head. You can correct me all you want, but I'm just thinking, like, I can't even think of one. That's so bad metaphor, but whatever. Like, it's like a good drug cocktail. Like, I think it was good.
Yeah, your flavors of neurodiversity are so different.
Yeah.
That I feel like you two really thrive together because you played off of each other's hyperfixation and dopamine rushes really well, but you also kind of balanced each other out in a way because you were those different flavors.
Yeah, and Brandy's like a do it. Like she's like, that's a great idea. You convinced me. Let's do it. Where I'm just I'm an idea person. So I'm like, what would be cool? What would work? This is how we could do it. And I will hyperfixate on the plan and the process and be completely satisfied with just the planning part and never do anything about it and be like, that was awesome, and not be so concerned about whether we actually went out and did it or had results, which is probably a good thing, because if I had done everything that I've ever had an idea to do, it's a good thing that disconnected my brain is like, plan, do not execute. I get in trouble for it the other way too. Like, it sucks. Like, don't get me wrong. It sucks to be I know what to do, but can't connect to the do it. Sucks in being an adult, but also very life-saving on the other end of the spectrum, where Brandy's like, if you convince her and she thinks it's a great idea or whatever, she's like, yep, we're doing it, done. And you're like, dang, that's cool. You did that okay, let's go. And then I'm like, I'll go along and be your cheerleader and back you up. And then if we're questioned, I'm like, nope, this is why. Like, I have all of the proof. Like, this is why we should have done this, you know. And I'll inspire everybody else to join in. So, yeah, very fun combination of getting things done. But yeah, so it's an interesting, there's an interesting turn of events and an interesting season that comes on. And it focuses around this women's speaking event that we went to like the year before. And this is the next year that we're going to go. And it's called Aspire. So we're in like November 2019. And I am leading this Aspire with another lady. But Brandy is like she was for me in the play. Like, this is a good point to remind people that Amanda and I have been kept apart for so many years that you and I do not socialize, hang out. Yep. We do not interact, right? But you have this like awesome and amazing friendship with Brandy, and I have this awesome and amazing friendship with Brandy, and I use Brandy, like same thing with the play, like I just said, I'm the idea person. This is what I want. These are my thoughts. This is the play that I want to bring forth. And she was like, I'm going to Home Depot. I'm getting all this stuff. We're going to call these people. You need a chair? Bam, there was a chair, right? So I think it's Brandy. And so now I'm doing this like Aspire thing, and I'm like, oh, we should do this. And she's like, I'll help you. Like, she's on board of like, Melissa, you need to be in charge of women's ministry. Like she also doesn't want to lead, but she'll be my second. Like, she wants me to be president. Yeah. She wants to be vice president, but I'm leaning on her. Like, I'll do what you want to do. And then she's getting a hold of you to do all of it.
And this is also the point where Charlotte is very much like, Charlotte has retirement in mind.
Yeah.
Tom does not. Tom is in this for the long haul, right? But Charlotte does. And so Charlotte, this is really where Charlotte starts like, well, if Tom and I are ever going to retire, we have to have these things in place.
Right. Well, and you have to think about the fact that she was just thrusted on youth, children's ministry, women's ministry.
Yes.
Because in the event that there's nobody, it all falls on Charlotte. And she doesn't want to do all of that.
No.
So she wants to offload as much stuff as possible.
So she's put Brandy back in charge of children's.
Yep.
She has handed youth off to DJ and Steve in conjunction with the Griswolds.
Yep.
And she's still like, they all have to still come to her.
Yeah.
For like permission for stuff, but she's
overseeing not, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it. She's not going to youth. She's not showing up to children's stuff, right?
Yeah.
But women's ministry, no matter what, through all this church history, she has always held tight to women's ministry.
Yeah.
And this is the first time she's held the reins out. She still had a hold of them.
Yes.
But she held them out of like, I'm looking for who I want to hand these to.
Right. I'm not handing them off yet, but who am I going to hand them to?
And I do know,
Brandy. Yeah.
I do know that there were conversations had of she liked what I did with the Go conference, but she didn't like that I just did it.
Yeah.
Because I lived by the like, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to do it. And if I get yelled at, hell, that I can get yelled at by Charlotte. Charlotte yells at you in such a sweet manner. She can tell you you're a horrible human being. And you walk out of there and be like, oh, she was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like Tom yelling at me.
I feel like during this time was probably the biggest time of manipulation for me. This church.
Yes.
I was definitely, for lack of a better phrase, wined and dined, you know, and shown the
Yep. We can show you the world.
Yeah, like Like, this is the start of, well, if you had more time. I mean, like, I remember being told things like it makes my stomach turn of like, yeah, if you've had more time, and like leading this Aspire, and for people to understand, my job in leading Aspire was to promote it, sell the tickets, keep track of who was going, and organize a group of ladies going to another church to watch an event where women got up and spoke.
You're making sure you have enough tickets, everyone pays for their tickets, and if you need a ride to get there, we have a ride for you.
Yeah, and what's really weird is, like, I don't know, like, there's odd things that happen along the way that you go, like, one side of this was so scripted to convince me to be all in at the church, right? Whatever that looked like, there was definitely a mission to get Melissa all in at the church. And somehow that was it was going to solve all the problems. If you can take away my autonomy and you can put me back in a position of being subservient and at the beck and call of my husband and with no money, so he's in charge.
Yep.
Then I can't leave. I have to eventually, maybe I'll just wear down and sit down and shut up.
You can't kick him out because you need him to pay the bills.
Yeah. And I don't talk about it because I have to always be in a good place to lead worship. I have to be in a good place to be a leader. Like, the manipulation level of I have to continually forgive and reconcile from minute to minute to hour and hour, because if I get mad and lose my cool at my husband, that makes me unfit to be a worship leader. That makes me unfit to lead women's ministry. Like, the level of manipulation is disgusting. But then I think about things that happen coincidentally, like that just fed into their world. Like, it's like that didn't need to happen because it just gave them ammo, but like it was a good thing. So like we went to this Aspire thing and like I don't know what it was, but like the lady that was the MC that year, like for some reason, like her and I connected on some weird level, like just on like she's from the stage and like they were giving away bags to the people who brought they're giving away gifts. Yeah. Like if you brought a group, so if you brought over X amount of people and your group signed up for this premiere thing, which I did, like I went, we're doing it, right? And so like I don't know what I was wearing or what was going on or the vibe I was putting out, but this lady was like, Melissa, and she called me up on stage to get my bag. She's like, girl, like, and like just an odd thing where she was like, girl, like, and then she like, I talked to her later and everything, but like just in that moment, she was like, we're vibing, right? Like, whatever, right? And I just was like, that was totally cool because I did feel like a connection with that lady, like for whatever it's worth. Like her and I have a lot of similar story, which, whatever that's about. But I was like, we had a moment, whatever. That totally like got used to play into the like, see, that's God.
Yeah.
Look what God is calling you to.
You have to
God
quit
is
your
calling
job
you to that stage, right?
Yeah,
like
that lady didn't know you.
Yeah. So, right now we're at the end of 2019 and I'm really being, what is it called? Like scouted? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like when
No, 100%. Yeah.
And like what, like literally wined and dined to be convinced to quit my job. I haven't quit my job yet, but I'm definitely being manipulated to do so from a church
and from your in-laws.
My in-laws, but from a church.
Yes. Yeah. All one and the same.
Oh, one and the same. But like
all one and the same.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. I did not go to Aspire. Brandy was very excited about Aspire. Yeah. So she talked to me a lot. She asked me to go. And I'm like, yeah, it's just not my thing. Like I had even at this point, I had stopped going to like women's breakfasts. And I'm like, it's just not my vibe. Like we had started doing crafts at women's breakfast. and they had to start like decorating the tables according to whatever the person was going to talk about. And I just was like, so are we just throwing like a once a month like women's VBS? Like, what are we doing?
This was the start of that. Yeah, where it became like these once a month conferences. I don't know.
Yeah, and then everyone had to stay all day.
Yeah.
Like it went from like you could come and have breakfast and hang out for a little bit, but now it's like 2 or 3 in the afternoon.
Women were hanging out.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like it wasn't all day an event. Like, and I don't think we're necessarily there. Yeah, we might be. This might be where we are. But women they were coming and then they were hanging out all afternoon and get home at like 2 or 3 o'clock for like an 8 a.m. breakfast. We were that desperate for interaction and whatever. I spoke at a lot of those. Like this was my platform.
But the men were getting mad.
Oh yeah.
Because like not only now do I have to feed the kids breakfast, but now you're staying all day. I gotta do lunch and nap time too. Like WTF, man.
Yeah, it was out of control.
And so like we had men coming to Tom and complaining.
Yeah. Why is my wife going to church on Saturday all day long?
All day long.
Because she's so desperate for interaction with people.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So I had stopped going, but Brandy was very excited. Like you said, Brandy was all in. And knowing Charlotte, I believe that Charlotte was going to multiple people saying, I could see you being the one that could take over women's ministry from me. But I need to be sure that you're the one God has in place. I fully think Charlotte was going to multiple people with that. I have no doubt in my mind that was offered up to her pet, probably multiple times.
Right, but what gives you that?
Just because Charlotte will never put all of her eggs in one basket.
Right.
She has like a cover your ass mentality.
Right. Except for the fact that people, like the number of people that were actually showing up though and doing anything was very like little.
No, I don't think it was like a ton of people, but I do think there was probably like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Like she made Brandy seem as though it was special and she was only offering it to her, but I have a feeling it was being offered to others.
Yeah.
But I think this also, coupled with we are in the middle of the 40 Days of Community fall campaign, which we talked about in last week's episode, but we all of a sudden have people from these groups who are spurred on by this idea of 40 days of community, and you should be building up your church and building up your community and building up your family and all of this stuff. And then this excitement, because women really did get excited about Aspire, and women came back excited.
Yeah.
And
they had a good thing going.
Yeah. And I went to the planning meeting this year, which was like towards the end of this year. I went to this planning meeting for women's ministry, and a lot of women came to this one because they were excited. They were excited at the potential of doing new things.
Aspire brought what Women of Faith was to a reachable and attainable level. Like when you think about what Women of Faith was, it was meeting in these huge arenas, and the women who spoke were actresses, authors, celebrities. Like they were, like when they had their guest speakers and whatever, they were all celebrity type level of women. Yeah.
I mean, like at some point, like Priscilla Schreier was there at one point, like towards the very, very end.
Yeah, yeah. And so you had the main
Beth
core, but
Moore, like the real Beth Moore, like
yeah. And so these big names and the women that led worship were recording artists, and they would even have male recording artists come and be there. Just huge names. It was a huge production. But Aspire was just as good, like professional level speaking, as Women of Faith, but it was a group of women from a local church that started this, and like we're going and meeting in local churches. So it wasn't, the Pepsi Center. It was the local church down the street that you could go and attend on a Sunday. And this group of women who were having this high level conference were bringing it down, and it was attainable. Like that's really what I think it was about Aspire, was just that it was these were everyday women doing this big name, big stage thing.
And it didn't seem like it was like Women of Faith level. That was, we have a giant stage and a huge, Women of Faith, if anyone ever went, they would set up in these huge venues and they would build up this stage. We're talking like concert stages, or like, think of like Super Bowl halftime, like big stages with sets and all of this, right? Aspire wasn't doing that. They were doing it very simply, but it also wasn't done
right
1980s.
No, but the talent was like, these ladies could have been, these ladies had the talent.
Yeah, no, they had the talent, they had the content.
Right.
It didn't have to be big and flashy, but it also wasn't like janky.
No. Yeah. And it had all the same like feels of Women of Faith. I mean, it's definitely, but it was done on a tangible level.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I think was like the hook of that. I think that's what inspired women, especially at Come As You Are, because we've been groomed to think that we are this mega amazing church, right?
We are it. The women of our community, man. They're they're waiting for us to do something.
Yeah. And so if these women from this, who are just a group of women who got together, and they talked about, they are the women in their churches leading, but like basically the Aspire women were doing the same thing that I was doing at Come As You Are. They were doing the same thing that Brandy was doing at Come As You Are. They're doing the same thing that you were doing at Come As You Are. And they got together and they created this platform and they took it on the road, and it was successful.
Yeah.
And I think that's what inspired, the women at Come As You Are, is that it was very much, oh, we can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think a lot of women felt that coming off of those 40 days of community groups and into Aspire, and then, kind of leading us into, out of the fall and into the winter. But something else happened during this time that I think is very noteworthy, and I think we should spend a little bit of time on, because Miss America attends Aspire. Miss America is coming to my, we had to create a group for them, and this very curated special group just for them. All of a sudden, they start attending church regularly. Barry and Miss America do. And they are seeking out new people. And we've kind of touched on this in a couple previous episodes, that it went from like no one knew who they were, and then they were like introducing themselves to people and being like, we're new here. We're new here. Well, they were still introducing themselves as we're new here 3 months later. And
I remember that.
So it was like they were going up to new people and being like, you're new here. We're new here too. We should exchange phone numbers. And so they start collecting these phone numbers of new people. And it got to the point where they would split up, and one of them would go on like the big kid, like the gym end, and one of them would go on the little kid end. And they would like make it seem as though they were like the children's ministry greeters. and they would like corner people, and like they would hone in on someone and like corner them and wouldn't let them leave and just sit there and talk to them for 15 minutes and would get their phone number and be like, we're doing a small group. You should come to our house. So I start like, what the damn hell? We couldn't go to their house. They couldn't go to anyone else's house. They didn't feel comfortable having strangers in their house. That's why they couldn't do a group for 40 days of community at their house for themselves. I had to create this group and create all of this stuff to make them happy and make them comfortable. And they're running a small group at their house?
Right.
Like, what the hell? And I just remember being so confused. And then they're like, it gets to the point where they're like, oh, we have like 40 people in our small group.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not a small group.
Right.
And I was so like, this makes no sense. No sense whatsoever. And they're like, yeah, we go and we eat dinner together. And I'm like, how come you're eating dinner with that group? Because we can't eat dinner as our 40-day community group.
Right.
Because you're allergic to everything. So like, I mean, are you having people over for lettuce and carrots? Like, what are you doing? And you can't tell me there's 40 people who want to come to your house and do that. So it was just, I was so confused by all of it at this point in time.
Yeah.
And they would do things like, if they didn't catch you in the lobby before church, they would go and like, they were really good at finding, because the new people, very rarely would new people sit like in the middle rows, because people very often they wouldn't scoot to the middle of the row. They'd sit on the edges, right? And so you really didn't scoot to the middle of the row unless you knew the people next to you.
Yeah.
You know? And so the edges towards the back were kind of where the new people would sit, because it's towards the back. If you need an easy escape plan, like, you know, and it's on the edge, you don't really feel like there's people, like you're in people's way, like, you know, like you're kind of in your own little area. And they would go up and they would walk up and they'd stand at the end of that edge row. Well, the other end of that row is the wall. So they would literally trap these people in their rows after church and would talk to them, sometimes for 45 minutes after church. Like, we'd have everything cleaned up. We would be turning off lights and we'd walk in the sanctuary and they would still be standing there talking to these people. There would be times where these people, if they were new and they had kids, Brandy had to bring their kids to them because they were the only ones left in children's ministry. And they would just like trap these people there. And like some of the stuff that they were telling them is like, oh, well, we've led Bible studies and we lead this small group. And I'm like, but
like, that's odd. Because a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, a couple months ago, we threw Grandma a funeral and you couldn't even talk. We had to give you your She-Ra, you know, woman of God hype up to even go up and talk in front of your family.
Yeah.
And you said you've never done church.
Right.
Then in 40 days of community, you again say, you've never had a church family. You've never felt connected before.
Yeah.
And now you're leading Bible studies?
Yeah. And it was like right around this time in my interactions, the few interactions that I had with Miss America, where the word like home church came out.
Did
like,
church out of their home.
Yeah. I feel like, and there were definitely other people involved. And because it wasn't very clear whether it was their home or somebody else's, but it didn't go well. Like, but it went from we've never done church to now we did do church but it didn't go well, but it was out of a home. And
yeah. And it was all very odd because like when her and I would meet to put together grandma's funeral stuff, she said that they had done church in their home, just their family in their home. She did open up and shared that she had been engaged to a guy who was a Mormon prior to going to college. And it was at college that she met Barry. And so she had like a background in being Mormon. And then the way she made it seem to me was I was engaged to this Mormon guy. I never really was super into what the Mormon church was teaching. Then I went to college and I met Barry and I fell in love. And we just started reading the Bible together at home.
Oh,
and we had
okay. So
and then we had kids.
Yeah,
and we just read the Bible at home to our kids.
Yeah. So the story that she told me was that she was engaged to this guy. Yes, the family was Mormon, and so just circumstantially, like that's where because she was in that relationship, like that was her exposure to quote unquote church or religion or anything. And then when she went to college, some lady sat down next to her and like started having a conversation with her, shared the gospel with her, started taking her to church. And that's where she was saved and baptized. And then at some point she had met Barry at some point. That he wasn't a part of the college story when I talked to her.
Yeah. Yeah, there was no woman when she made it seem like she met Barry and they both were looking for something deeper. And they decided to read the Bible together.
Interesting.
And it was very, like, serendipitous. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I talked to her, she had met him because she was sick.
Oh.
And that's what was on their website, too.
Yeah, because supposedly he cured her of Hashimoto's.
And all kinds of stuff, yeah. So she had been in a bad car accident or something. And that's how she met Barry. But in college, there was a lady who saw
and that's
her
not
and
the story we got at all.
To her at a table and then started talking to her, invited her to church. And
yeah. So when we say like people's narrative changed, like this is why we get so frustrated. And this is why like Brandy and I would lose our damn minds because I would be like, that's not what they said. And it would be like, oh, well, you must remember it wrong. No, I don't remember that wrong. Like it was my job to remember what people told me. I kept notes. Like this is how effed up this all was. I want everyone to just like think about this for a minute. It was my job to know everything about every person who walked in that church.
Yeah.
Because at any given moment, Tom would walk up to me and be like, that guy in the red shirt. And I'd be like, oh, that's Joe blah, blah, blah. And he works here and his wife's name is this and they have these kids. Yes. Thank you. And then he'd walk up, hey, Joe, how you doing? Yeah. And the person would feel special and validated that Pastor Tom knew their name. Well, Pastor Tom didn't know who the hell you were.
Right.
Amanda
did.
And I kept notes.
Yeah.
And then Tom had me teach other people how to do what I did.
Yeah.
So at the connection desk in the lobby, there were drawers behind there. There were notebooks full of notes on people. If anyone ever found those, we would have been so cooked.
Yeah.
Like, we had notes on people. Like, short guy with glasses, kind of bald. His name's Timmy. Like, you know.
Yeah.
And any information you got, you wrote it down.
Well, and like, honestly, like thinking about like in the moment of like, you have these people, they're new to this church. They start, they come sporadically. Now they start coming regularly. Now they're getting involved, right? And you think about all the different people that you talk to, and in the context of those conversations, how you tell your story. And none of this at this point in time, like there's a couple of things like specifically with you, and now they're in a group with you. And you're like, are you not connecting that like when I first met you, like, do you not realize I'm the person that you met, that you told this story to? And now in this group, you're putting on airs that you're these people. Like, that's a little like, but it, with everybody else and the stories that they're telling people, it doesn't seem like we're bringing it up from a 2020 past view. Like, pay attention to these things because this is stuff we figured out after the fact, and now we have to go back and retell it. But like when you're during it, I mean, you raise an eyebrow, but this wasn't like, we weren't like whistleblowing these people at this moment.
Because like, honestly, the changes in what she told me like when we were planning the funeral to the community group were so subtle that like, and I'm going to be honest, in those groups, I was so overwhelmed because I was focused on, are the kids okay? Are the kids entertained? And I'm going to have to clean all this up. So like, and is everyone happy? Everyone's happy. Are you all happy? You're happy, right? Please don't leave. Please don't leave. Please be happy. Like, that was that whole entire group experience for me. And so when some people would talk, and he did most of the talking in the groups. If she started talking and started sharing, he would put his hand on her leg and she would shut down instantly.
Yeah.
And so he did most of the talking. And quite honestly, he's kind of a pompous ass. And so like when he would start talking, I would kind of zone out.
Yeah.
And I would start thinking of like, okay, when this is done, I'm going to have Ryder start picking up these tables. Clayton's going to move these chairs. Jolene's going to pick up all the toys. We could be out of here 10 minutes. We could be out of here. Home and in bed in 20.
Yeah.
Like, that's what was going on in my brain when he would talk. So, the changes in the story were so subtle.
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on them in the moment.
Right.
And it wasn't until other people started saying, oh, that new couple that is leading that group. And I'm like, what group? Or that new couple that, they did this and this. And I'm like, that's not who they are.
Right.
And so then I would say something to Brandy or to Justin, and they would be like, well, this is what they told me.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that's not what they told me. But this is it. We're not going to Tom with this information.
No, this was the only thing. It is. It's like, it's weird. But like you said, it's so subtle. Like that you hardly notice these things until you do. But then like, and the fact that like, honestly, like during this time, they were still to me. And the only thing that they ever talked about to me was this trip they were going on to teach sign language in the Philippines.
And I still think that's so crazy because it never got brought up in our community group.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
Like never when we were planning the funeral,
people
never in the community group.
Go ahead.
Nothing. So, I heard from other people. Oh, the new people, the doctor, they're going to the Philippines. And I'm like, huh?
Yeah. But just like on that level of sitting down and timelining this podcast and going, no, like this is what I personally was told. And then there's things they were telling Brandy, and there's things they were telling you, and there's things they were telling everybody, and none of it was a complete picture. And it would just, I don't know, so weird. It was so weird. But this is like the first glitch in their story.
Yes. And the only thing was, this is about the time they brought up they wanted to talk on stage about their trip. And Barry had gone to Tom of like, can we do this? And Tom said no. And so then that got brought up on a Tuesday at prayer that Tom's like, I think I made the new guy mad, blah, 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 blah. And basically Tom wanted us to like no, Tom, you're right. Thank you for standing up for our biblical values, because we don't want your money, and we don't want people to feel like they have to give money. And so, like, I think that's what he was like
hoping for,
wanting from us. And like, I mean, slightly we gave that to him. But like, that's the kind of stuff like he would bring up. And the only reason he would bring it up is because he wanted that validation. Yeah. Right. And so they brought up that. And then he said, well, I don't know. They are leading this group. And I'm like, what group are they? Like, other people are saying this too. And Tom and I got in an argument over this. Because I was like, if they're willing to lead a group, why do I have to come to the church and do all of this? Yeah. Like, why do my family have to come set this up? Why do we have to entertain their kids? You know? And he's like, well, if this is what it takes to have them feel loved and welcomed, why would you not? Does it matter who they are? Does it matter if they want to invite certain people to their home? They don't know. They're baby Christians. That is verbatim what Tom said in like November of 2019. So just mark that on your little calendar in your brain, because that is very
better. They're just baby.
Very, very important.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing. Huge. They don't know any better. They're baby Christians. It is your job to teach them. And you're upset because you have to spend 20 extra minutes on a Sunday night to set up and tear down this group? What's wrong with you?
Burning Butterflies is a listener-supported podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing supporters on Patreon.
Follow the link in our show notes to learn how you can become a Patreon supporter too. Supporters get exclusive access to bonus content each month, including outtakes, cut content, and supporter-only episodes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on your listening platform.
Burning Butterflies is a production of Asha Media. Thank you for listening.